Story 1, True Crime, Murder, True Crime, Murder, Dating Show, Murder, True Crime, Dating Show, Dating Show, Dating Show, True Crime about a dating show murder, Murder, Murder. Story 2, they canceled too many good shows and there are too few being added. And even if there is a good show, you can never know if they will cancel it after 1 or 2 seasons, so I would rather not waste my time. Story 3, canceling every show after season 2. There was no longer any point in watching new shows. I will download them when they are completed or just watch them on some other streaming service that does not cancel everything. Story 4, when they started limiting family members and increased prices, I went back to pirating. Turns out in 2024 it's easy and comfortable to use, and it only costs a fraction per month for some server solutions. I was very happy paying a modest fee for Netflix and others, but they got greedy. Story 5, not being allowed to share my subscription with my husband, as we are together but don't live together, seemed just pointless meanness on their part and a comment on how we live our life. Story 6, never managed to subscribe. Just as I was in a financial situation where I was seriously thinking it would be handy, Disney and home box office and the other intellectual property owners split to their own platforms, and the deterioration wars began. Now it's a race to the bottom with no end in sight. Story 7, algorithm. I ended up scrolling for minutes after minutes, searching for things to watch while your neighbor's house is burning on a Sunday after 4 p.m., or neoclassical teen movie about aliens and cowboys. Like, just give me an alphabetical list. Story 8. I paused my subscriptions for the first time in forever. Reason, cost of monthly subscription. Not just for Netflix, but for others as well. Rather than having like 4 subscriptions going as I had been doing, I now gather a number of shows I want to watch on a provider and subscribe to that until I'm done with those, then cancel that one and switch over to another, rinse and repeat. The whole point of ditching cable is lost when you're subscribed to 4 or 5 services at between $15 and $35. It all adds up fast. Right now, I'm wrapping up Max and will do Prime, then probably Disney+. The ones I don't like are those like Paramount and Peacock, who only have 1 or 2 prestige shows each that I want to watch. I don't want to subscribe to Peacock just for Yellowstone. It's the reason a lot of folks are going back to Blu-rays and ultra-high definition. Story 9. Severe lack of content. Region locks with ever-increasing prices. There's nothing there anymore, and whatever is there is poor quality. I moved over to HBO Max. That has a lack of content as well, but at least the quality is much better. Story 10. It stopped being what it was. Netflix was the streaming version of Blockbuster Video. You wanted to watch a movie? You went to Netflix. There were new movies that had just come to video, classic movies, and whatever you wanted to watch was at your fingertips. Then they got it into their head that they were content creators. Don't get me wrong. They had some good shows, but I also wanted to watch the latest movie that came to what used to be home video. Yeah, I'll watch House of Cards, but sometimes I just want to binge watch old episodes of Star Trek or 80s movies or whatever is in the vast video library. Now the library is just old episodes of their own shows or movies that don't cost them anything to host. Story 11. Screen limit. I share all my streaming accounts with friends and family, and while others have sharing policies, Netflix was so draconian as to stand out as pathetically bad value. I've honestly been meaning to resubscribe since I think it's worth it again, but their behavior is so annoying that I still don't really want to. Story 12. When all the studios decided they wanted their piece of the pie and started getting their own apps, and Netflix had less and less content for more and more money, they almost had the pirates beat when Netflix was cheap and had everything. Now, piracy is on the climb again because the studios got greedy. Story 13. The pie keeps getting cut up into smaller and smaller pieces, yet the price per slice stays the same. It used to be that Netflix had a pretty big selection, but now everyone wants their own streaming service. As a result, the shows and movies you want are divided among more and more services. So I canceled all of them. Story 14. When they boasted about adding 100 titles and only 2 of them were new releases, all of the other titles had a budget smaller than my subscription, so really not worth watching. Story 15. My friend and I split the premium plan. When one of us got booted, we just canceled. We thought it was worth it to split between us, but not if we had to pay solo. Story 16 is on off because I switch between services. After a while, I feel like I have seen everything. I unsubscribe and come back later. After a couple of months, they have new content again. Story 17. We have less content, more cancellations, price increases, and lost the ability to share the account. Moreover, more of the content is now just low-quality material that used to be reserved for television. Story 18. I was close when they took off the increasingly poor decisions of Todd Margaret. But when they canceled the OA and Santa Clarita Diet, I threw in the towel and never went back. It has been over 2 years, and I regret nothing. Story 19. The price increases and not being able to find anything new to watch. I also unsubscribed because I wanted to improve my productivity. I didn't want to sit around watching Netflix for hours on end. Instead, I wanted to dedicate more time to learning languages, playing the piano, and making music. Story 20. I subscribed for years to share it with my elderly mother who lives in another country, but they recently started asking her to pay extra because she is not in our household. So forget them. Story 21. We had an account, but every time we wanted to watch something, we'd look, and they didn't have it. The only people that used it were my husband's friend and parents. So, when they said you'd pay more for other users, we just got rid of it and cut everyone off. Story 22. I had a year or so wondering, am I using Netflix all that much? But then some real bangers came out like BoJack, Arcane, Inside Job. But what broke my back was that last one. They announced 2 seasons of this show, and while it technically says Season 2 right now, they had ordered them together and had ordered a new set. And then just pulled the rug out from under them with a "just kidding. Haha. Inside Job was so good. Probably one of the closest adult animated comedies to come close to Futurama in quality." Story 23. I've been sailing the high seas since Napster. At one point, Netflix was so cheap and easy that I just paid for it. Then prices increased, tons of platforms emerged, and Netflix lost the rights to shows. The pirating community also created streaming platforms. No longer were you required to think in advance to get stuff. You could do just like Netflix and see what was popular and just stream it. Also, 4K got old. I no longer really cared if what I was watching was that high definition. Story 24. When I realized every show had a minimum 2-year break between seasons or else just canceled with no warning. There's no reason Stranger Things shouldn't be wrapped up by now. It's been 10 years. And canceling good performing shows made me not want to commit to anything but reruns. Story 25. I've been a customer since the early DVD mail days, yet I just received a message that they are discontinuing my plan and forcing me into a plan with advertisements. They even had the nerve to pretend like it was a good thing. Story 26. I recently decided to cancel my Netflix subscription after being a loyal user for years. For me, it came down to the rising subscription prices and a lot of my favorite shows getting removed. I felt like I was scrolling for ages without finding anything that really grabbed my attention anymore. Story 27. I rotate my streaming services now. Home box office has way more to offer me in the last few months, so once I hit a point there where I do not feel the pull to continue paying for it, I will go back to Netflix until it is time to move on again. Story 28. I watch 1 or 2 hours a week, so it's too expensive for my usage. It doesn't feel like a loss not having access. YouTube seems to cater more towards my tastes. Story 29. Canceling of shows like The OA and Mindhunter. The travesty of what they did to The Witcher, and finally a pathetic email that stated, "Good news! The price of your plan is going down." Which actually meant, here are some adverts, and if you want your original plan back, you will have to pay more. The rage I felt reading that email. I canceled that very moment. UK-based. Edit. I've been a constant customer since its very early days. Story 30. Price hike and no multi-household sharing. I was using it with a friend. Now, I only resubscribe once or twice a year when there is something worthy. There is less worthy content overall. I came back for Lupin and The Witcher. Haven't watched season 3 yet after the main actor debacle. I am really surprised they still grow. I barely know anyone watching it. Story 31. I dropped any service that wanted to push commercials while I am paying for it. That is the point of a paid subscription. The company either gets the advertisement money or the subscription money from me. I will not let you have both, so you get neither now. Story 32. Too much cost and too little use. Plus, giving transphobic individuals comedy specials and expecting me to pay for their services is too much for me. Can't do it. Story 33. It is too expensive. They constantly push one stupid show over and over whenever you log in. They do not put out enough content worth watching. Additionally, they also push content you have already watched and try to trick you into watching it again by changing the thumbnail. Story 34. Price increases and lack of content have been notable. I was subscribed since day one of their service. I'll probably resubscribe in a few months. I'm cycling streaming services now and binging content. Story 35. Focusing on original titles rather than licensing killed Netflix for me. If it's a Netflix original, I know it's going to have bloated episodes that need a good editor. I don't need to know every single detail. What they had to drink, how big their bathroom breaks were. If it's TVMA on Netflix, there's a bunch of poorly executed intimate scenes. Like watching The Sandman, an actually pretty good show, and then suddenly everyone's getting involved in intimate scenes by episode 5. It just cheapens what could have been a masterpiece. Syndicated network shows are almost always better edited and have some flow. Story 36. For us, it was a lack of really good movies. So many classics, and even not so classic, aren't there. They've filled the site with so much of their own productions, most of which are marginal at best. Too many movies feature actors we don't even know or have heard of. Their shows with episodes are generally not to our liking, and we find better classic TV shows on Peacock, Tubi, or Hulu. We canceled 2 weeks ago. Story 37. I finished Netflix and now I resubscribe very occasionally to watch something and cancel again. All the originals I liked got canceled before a resolution to the stories. I'm still bitter about the OA. The show was very weird as hell, but I wanted to see it get an ending. Story 38. Besides the fact I rarely used it, I got it when it was less than $10, and then they said, "We raise your price and you watch ads now." I said, "Forget you," and unsubscribed. Story 39. 1. We noticed that we hadn't felt the impulse to go to the app in months. The dip in quality shows that were either brought to Netflix or produced by Netflix was very noticeable by the time I canceled. 2. I also worked in the animation industry. Netflix enticed animation creators and workers with creative freedom, astounding pay compared to competing studios, and almost too good to be true benefits. I interviewed with them during the early part of COVID-19, and although it probably would have been financially lucrative for me, something about it didn't seem right. It seemed too good to be true. Shortly after I declined the job offer, the company started canceling animation series and movies without warning. Now, Netflix barely has an animation division. They no longer produce a plethora of in-house animation projects. The worst part is, anyone who jumped ship to work there and got laid off had no choice but to go back to other studios who cannot afford to pay as much as Netflix was offering. They had to accept a deficit in salary. 3. Netflix also purposefully hides viewership numbers from show creators so they don't have to pay them more. When Jenji Cohen found out how many people were watching Orange is the New Black right before the final season was going to air, her reaction was, "I want to negotiate a new contract." It was an astronomical number of viewers. Something like 1 billion viewers saw at least the first season. They just never told her because they didn't want to pay her more. Story 40. Cost and password sharing taken away. However, they got my business back once Monday Night Raw is on Netflix weekly. That will make it worth it for me unless they raise the price again first. Story 41. Canceling Santa Clarita Diet. But not just that. Going on afterward to find something to watch and only seeing Netflix originals as I scrolled for 5 minutes straight. I'm not funding a movie studio. That is called an investor. Story 42. I signed up for Netflix when they were brand new in 2002 because I lived in a place with no video rental places, and I thought the DVD by mail thing was an awesome concept. Later on, we started streaming, but after years went by, the offerings on the streaming side became unsatisfactory, so we went back to only having the delivery service. And we all know what happened there. I didn't cancel Netflix. They canceled me. Story 43. When they started locking people out who weren't in your household, that was fair enough. Just me and my husband use it. Then one day it said I didn't live in the household. Me, the one who pays the bill. I was already getting irritated by price hikes and lack of content, but that was the last straw. Story 44. It was the last used application out of 5, and I received a message on my living room TV saying something like, "This screen is not part of your home network." I logged into the app, and I did not have permission to access the account, my wife's email. It made me very upset, and I canceled. Story 45. I started back when it was DVDs. Great. Then they started streaming. Even better. Then they raised prices. Well, inflation and whatnot. Then they started producing their own movies and shows. Whatever. I'm there to watch my movies and anime. Then they raised prices. Meh, whatever. Then they started cutting down on their selection. Why? Oh, and by now they had changed the recommendations a few times. Well, I'm still finding stuff to watch. They are quietly cutting content they didn't make to make room for what they did. As if that's necessary in the digital age. Where did my favorite movies go? Now that I'm paying 3 times the cost for 1/10 the selection, at least my friends and roommates watching with my profile make it feel used. Oh, I need to stop that too? What am I paying for? I'm literally watching their shows to justify paying them to watch their shows more than because I want to watch them. I'm only recommended their shows, and nobody I know watches these shows. Sure, there are a few gems, but most of what I was watching was just something to watch. When COVID-19 hit and I had to adjust my budget, it was easily the first thing to go. I'm happier with Peacock with ads than I was with Netflix when I quit.